Here's a common perspective. I don't need hydrogen because I don't have any health problems. But here's another perspective. Prevention is better than cure. This phrase is often attributed to this Dutch philosopher around the 1500s. Even the CDC says it's far better to prevent disease than to treat people after they get sick. This is particularly true of chronic diseases, which is associated with suffering, large numbers of death, and high healthcare costs. On the flip side, today, there are an estimated 133 million Americans that suffer from at least one chronic illness. That is more than 60% of the population. Basically, 6 out of every 10 adults have a chronic disease. And 4 out of 10 adults in the US have 2 or more chronic illnesses. That being said, prevention is a much needed topic for conversation. We will dive into how hydrogen can be a part of that discussion on this episode of H2 Minutes. Before we get into prevention, I want to remind you about our series on the most prevalent diseases in America. We did a deep dive into how hydrogen can help the top 10 causes of death in the US. This video is about how hydrogen can help with prevention of all of those things. But I would encourage you to refer to those videos for more information. Now, this video cannot be produced without the help of our patrons. These people support our channel because they recognize the need for hydrogen education, and they know that is what we do for free. Here's the thing. It's free for you, the viewer, but not for us. A lot of time, energy, and money goes into making these videos, and we cannot do it without support. If you want to join our community and be the first to know about our content, you can sign up in the link below. Okay, now back to the prevention. First, let's talk about why disease prevention should be on everyone's radar. It has clearly been demonstrated by the scientific literature that preventing disease is a far better strategy than curing disease. In 2018, the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine published this article that says this: "There is no longer any serious doubt that daily habits and practices profoundly affect the short-term and long-term health and quality of life. Increased physical activity, proper nutrition, weight management, avoidance of tobacco, and stress reduction are all key modalities that can lower the risk of chronic disease and improve quality of life. Despite the overwhelming evidence that these practices have a profound impact on health, the medical community has been slow to respond in addressing these modalities and encouraging patients to make positive lifestyle changes. This represents a significant missed opportunity since more than 75% of Americans see a primary care doctor every year. Employing the principle of lifestyle medicine in the daily practice of medicine represents a substantial opportunity to increase the value of proposition in medicine by improving outcomes for patients while controlling costs. The time has come to employ the vast body of evidence in lifestyle medicine and encourage positive lifestyle medicine not only for our patients but also for our own lives." Non-communicable diseases are diseases that cannot be passed from person to person. These are things like heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and COPD. Again, I've made a video for each of these and how hydrogen can help. These diseases are largely preventable by addressing the risk factors, such as tobacco use, improper diet, physical inactivity, and abuse of alcohol. 80% of heart diseases and strokes, 80% of diabetes, and 40% of cancers can be prevented by eliminating the risk factors, namely poor diet, physical inactivity, and smoking. So it is clear that prevention of disease is far more effective than trying to treat or cure the disease once you know you have it. However, some risk factors are not due to lifestyle. Your age, sex, genes, ethnicity, high stress, and family health history can all play a role in your health. And there's not really anything you can do about that. So what can we do? Well, many people today are taking antioxidant supplements to promote health and prevent disease. But are conventional antioxidants effective at preventing disease? It is well known that chronic or persistent oxidative stress is a major problem. It is closely related to the pathogenesis of countless lifestyle-related diseases, aging, and cancer. However, many clinically tested antioxidants exhibit high toxicity levels. They limit their uses to a narrow range of therapeutic doses and result in ineffective prevention of oxidative stress-related diseases. Oxidative stress arises from the strong cellular oxidizing potential of excess reactive oxygen species, ROS. Acute oxidative stress arises from a variety of situations, including ischemia reperfusion. Persistent oxidative stress is widely accepted as one of the causes of most lifestyle-related diseases, cancer, and the aging process. However, many antioxidant supplements cannot prevent cancer, myocardial infarction, and arteriosclerosis, but rather conversely increase mortality. Thus, it is very important to be aware of side effects when developing an effective antioxidant for prevention of oxidative stress-related diseases. Under these situations, an ideal antioxidant molecule is expected to mitigate excess oxidative stress, but not disturb the redox homeostasis. In other words, the ideal molecule should not reduce signaling molecules such as hydrogen peroxide, but should effectively reduce strong oxidants such as hydroxyl radical. Interesting. I wonder what fits into that category. Let's keep reading that quote. After experiments, we have reached the current conclusion that the ideal antioxidant could be H2. Okay, I'm sure you knew where this was going. But I think what the research has to say about hydrogen gas for disease prevention will blow your mind. H2 therapy has been widely seen, used, and recognized by the scientific literature and the public as a potential therapy for many disease models. But what is rarely spoken of, even though referenced in many studies, is H2's preventative effects. Due to hydrogen's high safety profile, therapeutic benefits, and non-toxic effects, it has been shown to be safe and beneficial to be taken by everyone, even the healthy population, not just the sick. This is important because it can be easily incorporated into a person's lifestyle and aid in preventing the causal factor of many diseases. To start, let's look at some quotes for hydrogen and the prevention of specific health-related issues. For neurological disorders, hydrogen therapy administered in drinking water may be useful for the prevention of neurodegenerative diseases and for reducing the symptoms of acute neuronal conditions. For the eyes, these results obtained in experimental animal as well as in human clinical studies show that the suppression of oxidative stress by H2 treatment leads to the prevention or improvement of ocular diseases. In severe degenerative diseases, H2 slows disease progression. For the skin, thus, hydrogen water may serve as a daily skin care to repress or prevent ultraviolet-induced skin damage by raw scavenging and promoting type 1 collagen synthesis in the dermis. For the ears, considering the safety and easy accessibility of hydrogen gas to the inner ear cells, hydrogen gas seems a promising agent to investigate for the potential prevention of oxidative stress. To our knowledge, this is the first study to demonstrate the potential efficacy of inhaled hydrogen gas for preventing noise-induced hearing threshold shift after exposing animals to a loud continuous sound. Some studies have suggested that intense noise can damage the cochlea by causing mechanical injury to sensory and supporting structures. For blood clots, inhibitory effects of hydrogen on in vitro platelet activation and in vivo prevention of thrombosis formation, blood clots. For cancer and aging, as H2 effectively reaches the nucleus and mitochondria, the protection of the nuclear DNA and mitochondria suggests preventative effects on lifestyle-related diseases, cancer, and the aging process. For fatigue, in several publications, the beneficial effects of hydrogen in cases of fatigue have been shown, and we suggest that the potential role of molecular hydrogen in preventing and treating fatigue alone or in combination with other treatments is worthy of further attention. This is supported by the reasoning that many cases of fatigue results from reactive oxygen species or reactive nitrogen species disturbance of mitochondrial, and based on the observation that molecular hydrogen can reduce oxidative stress. One of us, Kurt Lucas, suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome for 1 month in 2011. Daily intake of about 1 liter of hydrogen-enriched water for a period of 4 weeks led to the disappearance of the symptoms. For mitochondria disorders, hydrogen has many advantages for therapeutic and preventative applications and shows not only antioxidative stress effects, but also has various anti-inflammatory and anti-allergic effects. Preliminary clinical trials show that drinking hydrogen-dissolved water seems to improve the pathology of mitochondrial disorders. Now that is just the beginning. We could produce a multi-hour video of quotes from the scientific literature of H2 preventing different disease models and still couldn't quote it all. There have been some really awesome overview studies published on H2's preventative effects. I'm going to spend the most time in one in particular. But before that, let's see what else the scientific literature has to say about hydrogen's preventative effects overall. To date, H2's preventative and therapeutic effects have been observed in various organs, including the brain, the heart, the pancreas, the lungs, and the liver. H2 administration has shown preventative and therapeutic effects in a wide range of disease models and human diseases. This chart here shows a summary of the potential of various preventative and therapeutic effects of H2. As you can see, it mentions a wide array of disease models that encompass many different parts of the body. H2 is easily applicable because it has no adverse effects and has great efficacy in nearly all pathogenic states involved in oxidative stress and inflammation. This study reports that the clinical effects of H2 were positive in patients with more than 10 various diseases. Since most pharmacological drugs specifically act on their targets, H2 seems to differ from conventional drugs because of its extensive and various effects. This article reviewed current medical research progress with respect to H2, including its unique properties, possible mechanisms of action, delivery methods, application in animal models and clinical trials, and future applications in the field. It concluded that H2-based therapy shows great promise as novel and innovative tools to prevent and treat human ailments that are currently health burdens globally. H2 is a novel antioxidant that exhibits antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-apoptotic, and anti-allergic effects. H2 has both preventative and therapeutic effects on a wide variety of diseases, including cancer, sepsis, cardiovascular disease, brain and nerve diseases, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Now I want to zoom in on this review article titled Molecular Hydrogen as a Novel Protective Agent Against Presymptomatic Diseases. Presymptomatic diseases has also been referred to as the silent killer, referring to a state of health in which a disease is slowly developing within the body, yet the symptoms are not apparent. I want to give you some highlights from this awesome article, but I highly suggest you read it for yourself. Like all my sources, I will put a link in the description of this video for you to go check it out after you watch this. So, these presymptomatic diseases cannot be detected nor treated with modern medicine. However, H2 is able to suppress the pathogenesis of presymptomatic diseases. This means that hydrogen presents prospects as a novel protective agent. With modern medicine, it is impossible to detect or treat a disease without recognizing a specific symptom to target. But this has its limitations with presymptomatic diseases. Interestingly enough, H2 is able to indiscriminately treat chronic inflammation systemically in various areas around the body, without the need to identify the specific disease. The property of H2 displays characteristics of machine gun therapy, being able to act on multiple targets, which allows for the molecule to target oxidative imbalances and chronic inflammation in various cells, tissue, and organs around the body, as compared with shotgun therapy, which denotes modern medicine, which targets one specific problem or symptom. Once H2 is dispersed throughout the body, the molecules will target hydroxyl radicals in cells regardless of whether the ROS, reactive oxygen species, is causing oxidative stress or not. This means that in the case of presymptomatic diseases, the inhalation of H2 will reduce oxidative stress in cells and thereby control the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines to mitigate the risk of chronic inflammation in an unbiased manner. For instance, if inflamed cells exist in both the liver and the kidneys, H2 molecules will target the signaling cascade in both locations, and there will never be a case where H2 discriminately targets inflammation in one location over the other. H2 is multi-targeted by nature. Despite the fact that symptoms of pre-symptomatic diseases may not be detected, H2 will naturally act as a protective agent against chronic inflammation to prevent the onset of pre-symptomatic inflammatory diseases. There is a state of disease that exists between healthy and illness, where the disease is actively and slowly progressing in the body, yet there is no observable symptoms yet. H2 has unique properties that allows it to be a novel protective molecule against this disease state by preventing chronic inflammation that underlies its pathogenesis. This article even mentions some diseases specifically and briefly explains how it develops and how H2 can help to prevent them. Let me give you some examples. Despite the development of various treatment methods, including chemotherapy and radiotherapy, cancer still remains the second leading cause of death in the world. While mutation and environmental factors are directly tied to the development of various cancers, chronic inflammation, in fact, underlies many of the mechanisms that cause carcinogenesis. While contemporary treatment methods have served to be relatively effective in decreasing mortality rates of cancer, major limitations remain, including the need for personalized cancer treatment and the onset of severe side effects. In light of this, H2 acts as a novel therapeutic agent that can prevent carcinogenesis via the elimination of the hydroxyl radical that induces DNA damage in tumor cells, as well as inhibiting the activation of NF-kappa B and NLRP3 to reduce chronic inflammation without any side effects. Chronic kidney disease is one of the leading causes of death in the world, and it is estimated that over 10% of the world is affected by this disease. It develops over time with the dysfunction of the kidneys. Yet, symptoms do not develop until later stages when less than 10% of the kidney function is available. H2 shows strong prospects as a protective agent against chronic kidney disease. The permeability and diffusivity of the diatomic molecule allows for H2 to travel around the body in the bloodstream, allowing it to be filtered into the kidneys and to penetrate mitochondria of kidney cells. By selectively eliminating hydroxyl radicals produced by renal mitochondria, H2 prevents renal mitophagy, thereby regulating the activation of NLRP3 inflammasomes by reactive oxidant species and controlling the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines. As such, targeting NLRP3 at the root of chronic inflammation with H2 presents a novel therapeutic target to prevent kidney dysfunction and therefore the onset of chronic kidney disease. More than 450 million people worldwide live with diabetes, of which approximately 90% have type 2 diabetes, which developed over time. Several mechanisms have been associated with the decrease of insulin production, many of which have been involved in inflammatory processes. Current therapeutic methods against diabetes encompass a vast array of treatments, including regular exercise and diet restrictions for the maintenance of health to the injection of insulin into the bloodstream in order to decrease blood sugar levels. Targeting the inflammatory pathway with H2 provides a novel treatment method that requires only the inhalation of H2 gas in order to mitigate the risk of type 2 diabetes. Hepatitis refers to severe inflammation of the liver, and it can be acute or chronic. There is a severe lack in universal treatment methods and preventative measures to combat this disease. Given the ability for H2 to regulate NLRP3 activation, it is easy to imagine that the inhalation of the inert gas may act as a protective agent against hepatitis by inhibiting chronic inflammation in the liver. Approximately 44 million people live with Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common neurodegenerative disease worldwide. H2 may serve as a novel protective agent against Alzheimer's disease that prevents the pathogenesis of the disease by targeting the chronic inflammation that may result from amyloid beta deposits with no side effects to the patient themselves. Parkinson's disease is the second most common neurodegenerative disease and affects more than 10 million people worldwide. Similar to Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease is also caused by neurodegeneration, and thus there is no cure for the disease. With the importance of preventing the disease in mind, H2 serves as a novel protective agent that can regulate NLRP3 activation as well as selectively scavenging in order to prevent oxidative stress in dopaminergic neurons. Since H2 can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, unlike most contemporary cerebral drugs, the inert gas has great prospects for the prevention of Parkinson's disease. It is estimated that over 1.13 billion people around the world have hypertension or high blood pressure. Yet, as a characteristic silent killer, it is common for most people to disregard its presence due to the minimal symptoms that are apparent. In humans, blood pressure is controlled by the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, also known as RAAS, and the sympathetic nervous system via the release of blood pressure regulating hormones. Any abnormalities to the homeostatic function of these systems will disrupt the release of hormones and consequently the regulation of blood pressure. It has been reported that high salt intake induces NLRP3 mediated inflammation in the brain, where the hypothalamus that controls the RAAS and sympathetic system is located. As a result, neuroinflammation leads to sympathoexcitation and RAAS activation, where hormones are overproduced and thus blood pressure increases. One of the characteristic properties of H2 is that it can pass through the blood-brain barrier due to the molecule's small diameter. As such, inhaled H2 may travel to the brain via the bloodstream to prevent neuroinflammation and therefore regulate both the RAAS and sympathetic system in order to prevent hypertension. It's kind of a scary thought to think about a disease progressing in your body without you having a symptom. But that is what makes H2 awesome. H2 can work and help with problems in your body that you don't even know are there. Maybe you have tried H2 and you didn't have any felt health benefits. But when we look at what the research about hydrogen says, we know that H2 can be doing thousands of things that we may never feel. This video discusses the fact that most chronic diseases develop slowly and you may never feel them until it's too late. So with that in mind, H2 can still help us tremendously and improve our health even if we can't feel its effects. Let's look at one more quote, and I must say it's pretty amazing. It is important to remember that if both chronic kidney disease and hepatitis were to be developing within a patient, it is impossible for H2 to prevent inflammation in the kidneys without doing the same in the liver. That is the key property that distinguishes H2 from modern therapeutic measures is the indiscriminate nature and ability for the molecule to act as a protective agent against pre-symptomatic diseases in various areas of the body without the intention of it doing so. This means that even if symptoms of pre-symptomatic diseases are not apparent, the simple act of inhaling H2 can prevent all pre-symptomatic diseases before common treatment methods need to be applied. Limitations exist today with modern medication and treatment methods against pre-symptomatic diseases. Even exercise, which is essential in the maintenance of human health, cannot suppress the chronic inflammation at the root of such diseases. As such, H2 paves the way as a novel preventative agent that can be used universally to avoid the development of chronic inflammation and more broadly pre-symptomatic diseases. This presents a good opportunity to rethink what we know about our health. Maybe we should be investing in long-term prevention instead of what feels good now. Maybe hydrogen needs to be a part of your lifestyle now, even if you don't have any chronic illnesses. I hope this video was helpful and gave you some motivation to stop dealing with the symptoms and start dealing with prevention. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video. And that was your disease preventing dose of H2 within minutes.